Hello everyone, welcome to episode 46 of Reconstructing Cave Story. In this episode we're going to be placing our projectile wall particle, and the problem we're facing is where do we actually place this particle. So the solution is, when it hits a wall, if we're firing to the left, we want to place it right at the right edge of the wall, and it'll be centered on the right edge, but it'll keep the same bullet wide that it had the whole time it was flying. And so it's just going to be the opposite edge for all these cases. So if we're firing to the right, then we hit the left edge. If we're firing up, then we hit the bottom edge. If we're firing down, then we hit the top edge. And this is going to be pretty similar when we end up doing slopes too. So I'm not going to change things. I'm not going to prepare for slopes too much because, yeah, it's going to be really similar, I think. So, yeah, let's go ahead and get started. So the first thing I'm going to do before we get started for real is go into our GameCC class, or GameCC file, and get rid of this add new particle because we don't need it anymore. It's this projectile wall particle test we were doing. And I'm going to take this include and move it over into our player CC, or Polar Star CC. So let's go in here, and then we'll add it right below our Polar Star particle.h. And then we'll scroll down to update for our individual projectile. And then right here, if we collide with a wall tile, this is where we need to create our particle effects. So let's start by, so like I said, we're going to need to know the left, right, top, bottom edge of our tile. So I'm going to start by creating a rectangle just because we have the left, right, top, bottom all calculated from there. So let's do const rectangle colliding. Let's do units tile to game. So colliding tiles sub I dot call, right? Because call is associated with X. Same thing for row. So this is the X, this is the Y. And then width and height are 1. And let's call this rectangle just tile rectangle. And so this way we can just calculate the tile rectangle dot left and right, and it'll be easier. So now we need to know which direction we're actually traveling in. So let's start by checking to see if our vertical direction is horizontal. That means we're traveling left or right. Otherwise, we are either traveling up or down. So let's check the other three, or other two. So let's check up, otherwise down. So if we're traveling left, so if horizontal direction is left, otherwise right. So if we're going to the left, then we want to place our sprite at the right edge. So let's keep track of units, units of game for X and Y. So maybe call this particle X and particle Y. So particle X is then going to be equal to our tile rectangle dot right, and otherwise particle X is equal to our tile rectangle dot left. And we're gonna have to add an offset to this in a little bit, but I want to get this all hooked up together first. And then our particle Y is just going to be our get Y. Okay, so next we take care of the up condition. So, and actually I'm going to change this around a little bit. So I'll put this inside of an else clause. So otherwise we're either traveling up or down. So let's do if vertical direction. So I move this into an else case if vertical direction is equal to up, and then otherwise it's down. So if we're either going up or down, then our particle x is going to be, and this is why I split it off into an else case, our particle x is going to be equal to our get x, right? Because we want to keep the same x, but we want to set our y to be exactly at the bottom or exactly at the top of our rectangle or our tile. So let's start with up. So if it's up, we want to be at the bottom. So let's start particle y to be equal to tile rectangle dot bottom. Otherwise, we want to set it to top. Again, we'll have to add like a half tile worth of offset to this, but I just want to get this all hooked up first. So then let's actually create our particle. Let me copy something from here just to make it easier, because it's a really similar constructor. So instead of projectile star particle, it's projectile wall particle, and instead of get x and get y, we're going to use particle x and particle y. And I think that'll do it. So let's build and run. So let me start by building. And it built successfully, so let's run it. So let's see how this looks. I'll start by shooting down. Okay, yeah, so it gets placed right at the right position, it looks like. Let's try the left edge. Yeah, so you can see how it's not like centered right on the edge, which is what I want ideally, but let's keep looking at the other ones to make sure that they're all placed correctly. Again, bottom edge should be shifted up by half a tile. So it looks like everything should be shifted by half a tile. So let's shift everything. So let's start. So if we are at the right, we don't want to draw it right at the right. We want to shift it over to the left a little bit. So units, okay, half tile. And if we are at the left side, we want to shift it over to the right, I believe. No, I think we want to shift it over to the left. I might have to test this. So let's start with just shifting the left and the right particle x's over by half a tile. Let's see how it looks from the left. That looks right because it's right centered on the edge of the wall. Let's check it from the right. That's centered right on the edge of the wall. Okay, so yeah, both of them are minus units k half tile. So I'm actually going to do this outside of this if else thing. So particle x minus equals units k half tile, and get rid of it here just so that we can see that we mean to do the same thing to both of these conditions. So both the left and the right case will subtract off half a tile. And then we want to, I think, subtract half a tile from particle y too. So let's try that. And that's only in the case, like, we only want to subtract y if we are going in a vertical direction, and we only want to subtract x if we're going in a horizontal direction. So build and run, look at this, jump up, shoot down. That looks good, that looks perfect, right where I want it. Okay, let's check the right and the up. And I'm totally happy with how this turned out. So this has been a pretty short episode, but yep, I just thought it'd be better to split it off into 2 episodes, and why not call it 2 different episodes instead of part 1 and part 2. So that's the end of this. Next, I think we'll be working on the death cloud particle effect, and that's what happens when the bat kind of explodes when it dies. And I think it'll look really cool, and I think you guys will like it. So that's what's coming up next. But in the meantime, thanks for watching, and happy developing.